Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Our show today is a woman's prerogative Part 2. We had Part 1 a little while ago, and now we're going to explore with the same topic in Part 2. We are in partnership with E360 TV with this show. A warm welcome to our loyal viewers at E360 TV and across all of our platforms, and our friends across our usual platforms, which is YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. Our topic today is an interesting one, as we explored in Part 1. Our topic tonight is defining happiness, diverse paths to fulfillment and the pursuit of joy. We had a really interesting exploration, and I'm expecting just the same kind of exploration with some different insights. I look forward to welcoming all aspects of the pursuit of happiness. And we are now joined with our wonderful panelist, MARISKA, all the way from New Zealand, I think, or maybe it's Australia, because I know she's moved. Hello.
Hello, Caroline.
Is it Australia?
Yes, we have moved, hence the little bit of interruption in our being together, as well as summer. Your summer, my winter, also putting a bit of a spanner in the works.
Well, it's wonderful to see you back. I am really looking forward to our exploration and our conversation tonight. But before we go into the topic, please do share with our viewers what you do and how you help people.
Well, luckily I remember all of that. So I am a leadership development partner, and I do that by partnering within training elements as well as coaching. And the leaders I partner with are mostly engineers. So if you are an engineer or within the engineering space, and you potentially want to move into leadership, or you are already in leadership and you want to move up in your leadership space, that is who I work with. And thank you, Dr. Jacalyn, for showing my very wonderful website that I have just noticed I need to update a little. And other than that, I enjoy my new environment. So I am also learning and enjoy that. And that, oh yes, and if you want to contact me, just in case I forgot to mention this, you can do so via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. And I'm sure Dr. Jacalyn still has dreams about me saying just that.
Thank you very much, Mariska. And for myself, I help people bust their stress. I work with root cause therapy and chakra psychology, and I've been working in stress management, helping people bust their stress since 2000. I was in practice in Harley Street for 17 years and only left them to move out of London. And I felt that I was probably too attached to leave London, so I had to give up my Harley Street practice firstly before I could move out of London. And I've been working with people to break through the patterns to identify the root cause of what creates their stress, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, or indeed if it's a situation in terms of a relationship, whether it be family, business, or indeed intimate. So I help people identify the root cause of the initial trauma that created the stress difference and the stress symptom in their lives. And I use root cause therapy and chakra psychology, advanced counseling techniques, as many other energy healing practices. So let's move into our topic. You're there, right? So, Mariska, for you, what does happiness mean to you right now and personally?
What does happiness mean to me? That's an interesting question, because I actually had one similar question the other day. While I met a couple of friends, we had small little cards, and on the back of my card, it asked whether I would rather be happy or right. I said I would like to be happy. And now you are asking me to define happiness. So it is becoming a little deeper for me, and I appreciate that. I think for me, happiness is where I can be fully myself, where I can live my life authentically, try things out, learn, grow. That makes me happy. And as we mentioned before the show, being in Australia, I get to interact with animals, which is, I'm so happy about that. I love animals. So being able to be in nature, interact with animals, wild ones, as well as tame ones, that makes me happy. It brings me joy. It fills my heart with love. So I would say that would make me happy. How about you, Caroline?
Wonderful. Thank you, Mariska. For me, I'm not in Australia, and I'm in the middle of winter, cold, chilly winter in the UK, in the north of the country. So it's very cold. And I can honestly say happiness for me right now is being warm. Cozy. Happiness for me is about an inner calm and an inner peace. It is, from my perspective, an inner joy and an inner peace, and also from my personal perspective of challenges, health. Because there are many people that are famous, rich, have all the money in the world, they have the fame, the fortune, but they don't have their health. And I feel that at this current time, especially with all the disasters that are happening, that the health and warmth are really critical for being in a place of inner peace and inner happiness, because many people have lost their homes due to the different floods and the different things that have happened from world disasters. And I feel that for them, it's about having something that they can call home, that they have their health, that they have their lives. I know that sounds a bit profound, but because we are in the real depths of winter here, and they're threatening snow at about 10 o'clock tonight, going into Tuesday. So I'm not even sure whether I'm going to get out to an event that I need to go to. So that to me is starting to cause me some non-inner calm. You know what I mean? So tell me, for you, when you were much younger, what was happiness for you when you were more younger, in your childhood or in your young adulthood? Is it different or is it the same?
That's an interesting perspective to think about, because one of the things that I'm noticing as you ask that question is I really enjoyed learning and exploring even from a very young age. So I think that element is similar. I haven't lost it. I think it might have changed in the way I explore or the way I think about it. To a degree, when I grew up, potentially, I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to necessarily fail at things. Whereas, as I grew older, I came to the conclusion that if I don't, it basically means I didn't try anything, which means I didn't experiment, I didn't explore, and that's sort of counterproductive. One of the other things, as you asked that question, that came up for me is one of my happy memories that I recall from childhood was sitting at the dinner table, which I don't know how many people still even do that, and having dinner with my family. And I recall always listening and really wanting my dad to talk about things that happened for him in his life, whether it was in his childhood and all the antics that they got up to at that stage, or whether it was as he grew up. I remember once he talked about borrowing my grandfather's car with all his brothers, and they had to sneak it in and out of the garage so that the adults didn't wake up in the process. And apparently as they brought the car back, actually bumped it and got into trouble because of that. So those things make me happy. I love and enjoy other people's stories and experiences of life. And that's most probably what brought me to what I'm doing today, because I get to share other people's experiences of leadership. And that makes me happy too. How about you, Caroline? What is it that you can think of in your earlier years?
Well, in my earlier years, and you've just reminded me of some of the things that I used to do, and I was a bit of a creative, and I loved dressing up. And there was nothing more satisfying and made me feel gratified by putting on a show for my family, for my mum and dad. And so there'd be me and my three brothers, and we put on a show, and we was always looking for the applaud, for the claps. And I was so adventurous with it that we would bring in the neighbors. And I remember one time that we did a show out of our garage. And so when the curtain came up, the garage came up. And when the curtain went down, the garage door came down. I was very creative, but it was something that made me happy when I was very young. It was something that filled me with joy to see the expression on my mum and dad's faces in terms of the effort that we put in. And I also remember the fun thing about dressing up was a big deal for me. I'd always want to be dressed up as a princess and be rescued, so I'd always have a knight in shining armor rescuing me in some of the shows that we did. And I completely forgot about it until you mentioned about the childhood aspect. And at the same time, it was again looking for external approval, for feeling that I belonged, that I was wanted. When I was young, I was always looking for approval from my family, because we were 4 children and I had 3 brothers, and they kept my mum and dad very busy. So like yourself, I did a lot of studying, and I was the studious one And there was nothing more pleasurable for me than to go and learn something new. And so that was also part of my journey to be self-fulfilled, to find an inner happiness by exploration and by learning new things. So I'd always put myself out there and learn some different things, and that gave me an inner fulfillment. So I share a lot of things that you do, Mariska, in terms of finding that place of inner fulfillment and joy. And it was, I feel, about making a difference for myself and for others. So I was very much on the learning educational route when I was young. So tell me, Mariska, have you changed from what you were doing, what made you happy when you were young, to what makes you happy now? Or is it the same? Are there different things that make you happy now in your older adulthood than it was when you were younger?
Caroline, I think for me, something that I reconnected with a couple of years back, actually, was almost rediscovering experiences. And what I mean by this is we went for surf lessons while we were in New Zealand as one of our wedding anniversary gifts to ourselves. And in the process of surfing and learning and being in the ocean, I noticed something that I noticed when I saw the sea for the first time. And I remember it, weirdly enough, quite vividly. And that's the little bubbles on the top of the water as they sort of get to the end of the wave break when they crawl over the ocean floor and get to the beach. And I looked at them and I thought, you know what? I remember you guys from when I was little. And I remember touching you and having this wonderful bubbly sensation on my hands. And I did that again. And it had a different sensation and yet familiar. So I really, really enjoyed that. And at that stage, I sort of made a semi-intentional decision to relive all the experiences, regardless whether I've had them before, whether I have them on a regular basis. But reconnecting with them brings me joy. It sort of gives me a new way of exploring them and learning from them. And that is something that I think I brought from childhood that I sort of forgot about for a while in the growing up process. And I brought it back for myself, which I really find a lot of fun, and there's a lot of joy in it. Then I also think one of the other things that I enjoy doing is building on what I already have. So seeing how I can incorporate all the different elements that I have been exposed to in this lifetime. And I really find a lot of joy in that too. So as my dad used to tell us his stories about being young and all the things that happened for him, I also gather my own stories now so that I'm able to, well, tell other people, but also to share them with myself and share them with people I love. And that I really find a lot of fun too. And it brings me joy and happiness. So I think there's some elements that I brought from my younger years and got reacquainted with. And then there's some elements that grew and changed and evolved as I got older, and I'm sure that they will continue to evolve, or I hope so at least. I'm sure I don't want to stagnate and just stay the same all the time. And as I also grow older and wiser, hopefully, things change and I get to experience life in different ways. So I think that perspective shift I also appreciate and bring into areas so that I can enjoy life and all the experiences that comes with it. How about you, Caroline? How's that for you?
Thank you, Mariska. My gosh, I felt like I was at the beach with you as you were describing it. I felt the waves, and I realised that there is no lovely warm waves in the UK. It's chilly. Even in the summer, the sea is not very warm. But I have had experiences of going to much warmer climates. I've spent quite a lot of my time in Florida, and walked along the beach and Daytona Beach, and that was just incredible. They were walks that I will never forget because the sun was so wonderful. But we don't have that same kind of weather in the UK, so I can't join you in saying that that's something that's wonderful about the UK, but I have had experiences of it when I've done my training in the US. For me, one of the themes that has been with me all the way through and has changed as I've moved through my journey is music. Music is something that has been a passion of mine, and I was always into music from very young. I can remember going to a local disco, which was like a community club, which was started at 6:30 and finished at 8, which was late. And I was 5 years old, and my mum would take me. It was the top of the road, and I would absolutely feel happy and fulfilled when I was dancing and I was singing along to all the songs. It filled me with joy and with happiness. I was very young when I first started going, but there was something that has traveled with me all the way through my life. Music has been a dream for me in terms of having the inner happiness and inner fulfillment. And I still turn to music, and it's different now. The music that I am interested and want to listen to now is much more therapeutic. Not that I don't like the other stuff, and I absolutely adore the 80s was my time when I left school, and the time of the music that was great for me and that made me feel happy because it was something that I was experiencing internally. And now very much into music, sound baths, gong journeys, ecstatic dances. So that has been a theme of the inner experience of inner joy and happiness. So it's an external thing with an internal experience coming out externally. So music for me has been very, very much a theme throughout my entire life. Have you got any thoughts of what I've shared with you just now?
I love the music piece. You reminded me of the influence of music in my life as well, and the different spaces and places when it really impacted me as a human being, whether it was me being very, very happy and dancing to it and really enjoying it, or me being very, very sad and just lamenting. And then enjoying said sad song with that emotion. Music has so many versatile ways of being used. So thank you for reminding me of that experience as well. I did not dance. I am not the stage type of person. My biggest stage performance was that of a tree, and I stood fairly still at that stage. So I would not be doing any dancing in public, but I do absolutely love dancing on dance floors and yes, in my house with really good music. And the 80s, yes, I agree. I was a bit young at the time when it came out, but I still enjoy the music though.
There was something very happy and something very hedonistic, I feel, about the 80s music. But I think that everybody that comes of age when they leave school, that they always feel that their music when they left school was their music and it was the best out. And I think that goes without saying, you know, my mum was very into the 60s music because that was her era. And so all she would play would be Cliff Richard and Elvis Presley. And I would get really fed up of Cliff Richard, especially when I kept hearing congratulations. But one of the things that I feel is that life for me has been a journey of happiness. I didn't start liking and deciding. For me, it's been a journey and an alternating and undulating journey of happiness, because different things now make me happy, whereas when I was much younger, I had a different experience, a different take. I was very external, and now I've become very internal, and that I've noticed has changed in terms of my inner happiness, that I was very external in looking for what other people thought, what other people said, and then if they were happy, I was happy. But now I feel that it's much more about what makes me happy inside, and it isn't always what other people expect. And I certainly felt that was quite a change. So I was very out there when I was younger. And as I was getting older, it became much more that I didn't need the wide circle of friends that I had back then. And I always had I had many circles of friends. Now it's much smaller, but it's different because the connections are deeper. Do you have any thoughts to share on what I've just shared, Mariska?
Caroline, I appreciate almost the innerness of what happened as you mentioned you grew older, and a shedding of the external validation pieces. And I absolutely relate to the elements of being worried about what other people think from time to time. I think when it comes to happiness, to me, it wasn't such a big element. I could really be happy with just being me, as well as being an introvert. I didn't worry so much about friends and what they thought. If I could do what I wanted to do, then that made me happy. Unfortunately, not so much for my mom. But that I think changes as we grow older. And one of the things, as you were talking, that I noticed about myself is that I actually had, while young, I think for me, I didn't place as much importance on happiness with others. There's a degree of just assuming that they would always be there, which technically speaking, I know they won't. And at that stage, that's sort of the way my brain worked. So as I grew older, I think there's a bigger appreciation of the joys that we can create with others, and the collaborations and things that we can share with other people. And that is something that I noticed for me changed. So being a little bit more of an introvert, I won't say that I went totally extroverted, but I appreciate some of the elements of bringing more people into my space and being able to enjoy that, as well as my own things on the things that I enjoy by myself. And I know that one of the things that I find happiness in, as I mentioned earlier, stories. So the stories my dad told, as well as stories in books. So I really love reading. And for some people, it is very weird to know that I enjoy reading with my husband. So we read our own books in the same living room, in silence. So other people might think that is very strange, and yet for us, that is also connecting in our own way of doing it a little bit different, which I think as I grew up, I always thought that we needed to interact with other people if we had other people around us. So being able to read a book, I needed to be on my own. And I discovered that that's not required. I can be quite happily reading along with someone else in the same space, and we can both enjoy the experience and hopefully have a good story that we are reading that would give us some joy and happiness in the pursuit of it. How are you finding some of the things that I'm sharing, Caroline?
Well, you've brought up reading, and I have to say that I was a big, big reader when I was younger, a very big reader. I would read everything. I have a huge library of what I would call reference type books now, but I had a lot of story type books when I was younger, and I was very much a big fan of Enid Blyton, and very much a fan of Winnie the Pooh, Pooh Bear. And I was much more, I think, of an escapist, a fantasist, and I would be escaping in fairy tale castles and dragons and goblins and, and it was just something that I enjoyed doing, and I would be lost in that. And that's where the shows came up in terms of my creative talent. But it's interesting that you mentioned about the sharing of reading, because I realized as I was getting older that I'm too thirsty for information. And so I like to do audiobooks now. And I realized through my training that I was auditory rather than visual. And so listening to books gave me the information quicker, because I was too impatient to get the information in reading. As I got older, I just wanted it quickly. And so that's why I do a lot of seminars and conferences. Well, I did when I was in London. And that for me was like sort of 2 minutes, 2 hours with someone gave me everything that I needed. And it gave me a buzz. Whereas if I was reading, it felt flat. And when I'm listening to audiobooks, and it's an expensive hobby to have, and I've got a lot of audiobooks and belong to audio clubs, but one of the things I want to share is that there was a group reading on Zoom in the lockdown, and I belong to an organization called the Universal Peace Federation. And we were reading as a group the autobiography of Mother Moon, the founder of the organization. And it was absolutely fascinating because there were about 4 or 5 of us, and we'd each take a passage or paragraph or a page. And then we would share our own insights from it and what we felt from it and what it brought up for us. And so there I was, reading my own paragraph and saying, that's really akin to what's going on at the moment. And even though it wasn't something that I wanted to do, I found that I got something very amazing. I felt that I had an inner glow. I felt that I was fulfilled with something that I didn't think possible from reading a book. It was it was amazing. And so at the end of, our time of reading the autobiography, I actually became very good friends with someone there that I only saw on Zoom. And then she became a mentee, and now we do lots of things together. And so I actually got friendships from having that experience. And it made me realize, it rekindled my feeling about reading. But we are getting towards the end of our show. Can you believe it? And I've got so many other questions to ask. So one of the things that, and we're going to have to be a quite quick, short fire with some of these sharings, because we have 5 minutes before the end of the show. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. Do you think that cultural norms and societal norms and cultural backgrounds have a different influence on understanding their views of happiness?
I think it might. So, thinking about my experience in South Africa and the way humor works for South Africans, and thinking about my experience in New Zealand and the way humor works there, and then thinking about Australia and the exposure that I've had of humor in this environment, I can see that potentially happiness will also show up in different ways for different people in different cultural spaces, or the way that they grew up. To give you a silly example, advertisements. So in South Africa, we had quite a few advertisements that had some form of humor to it. It might be very local based, so other people might not understand it, but there was humor within that space. In New Zealand, I did not find as many. There might have been one or two, but they, in general, did not have loads of advertisements that had some humor to them. And in Australia, I'm finding loads of advertisements with humor in them again. So I do suspect that there is something within the water or the culture that influences the way that we express our happiness and even experience happiness. How about you, Caroline? What's your thoughts?
I'm in total agreement with you, Mariska, because the British, we are known to have our stiff upper lip. And so we kind of do things like sort of with gritted teeth. But one of the things that is, because if it's a difficult situation, we grit our teeth and smile through it, and yet we feel something else. So one of the things that comes out of that is, and it's a negative thing, but actually something that gets past this needing to be in control and be happy, be seen to be happy, is the British sarcasm. And so there is a lot of sarcasm in our wit. And so sometimes people will say things like, oh, I'd really love to come to your party. It sounds like great fun. And we go on and on being really nice. And then the British sarcasm is, I can hear a but coming. You're not coming. And so it's like sort of, we hear it very easily and quickly, and we see it because we are trying to be pleasant when we don't feel it. And so sarcasm is something that the British has and finds it difficult to cope with. And at the same time, it's something that we do. And we are pretty much at the end. So please share how people can contact you, Mariska, and I will do the same. And then we're over to our sponsors.
So people can contact me via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com. And that, of course, is anyone that is within the leadership space. It might be new to you, or if you are moving up within your leadership journey and you want to know how to bring a little bit more humanness into your leadership, please do contact me for any of those occasions. Over to you, Caroline.
Mariska. And for me, you can contact me on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or reach out if you prefer to call, +44 if you're international, 0 if you're local, 7523 120 189. And you can also follow me on social media. My preferred platforms are LinkedIn and Facebook, and you'll see all the wonderful things that I've been getting up to. And I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time and the same place for a Women's Prerogative Part 2 at exactly the same time, which is 10 to 9 Greenwich Mean Time and 10 to 4 Eastern Time. And for a Women's Prerogative Part 1, 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Over now to our sponsors. It's been such an amazing show, a really interesting exploration and very different from A Woman's Prerogative Part 1. Always is. Thank you very much, Mariska. It's been fun. I look forward to seeing you next week at the same times. Bye-bye for now.
5 Little Known Secrets for Dementia Caregivers with Tracy Cram-Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram-Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in second grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram-Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones.